Gen Z are waking up to the fact that the college first narrative was largely a bit of a con job that was peddled on their older brothers and sisters. And so they're younger looking up at, siblings or cousins who have pretty meaningless degrees that haven't led to meaningful changes in their income. And then the second thing that's happened is they're watching all of these like really interesting mass following creators on TikTok and YouTube. And if you spend any time on these platforms, you're just searching plumber on TikTok, you're going to see people with like multi-million follower count channels, huge amounts of views. And that has in a way made the trades attractive, appealing, hip again in a way that I don't think anyone saw coming. Is this trope real, or is this just kind of a media narrative that's there to sell articles?
I think it does make sense. We're definitely seeing a shift. Younger people are looking for hands-on, meaningful work and also long-term, more stable career. And I think trades offer just that. It's funny, I was listening to a podcast on investment earlier today, and it kind of makes sense, right? If you can start making great money at a very young age, so instead of going into school debts for years, and you can start investing your money in the market, and just seeing a huge trend in young people, starting in careers where they can make great money from the get-go and are super interested in the investment market. It is definitely a trend that we're seeing.
You're watching the LeanScaper podcast, where landscapers come to grow. If you want the systems, stories, and strategies to build a lean, mission-driven company that your team loves working for, keep watching. Josianne and Naomi, the CrewHR team, it's really good to have you guys on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Benji.
Correct.
I really appreciate you guys being here. We've got a jam-packed conversation. I'm just going to dive right in. Why do you think so many landscapers and contractors more broadly so commonly like fall into this like post and pray strategy when it comes to hiring their teams?
Well, I think there's sometimes that sense of urgency is kind of lacking the strategy and the preparation work. So I think that's why we're seeing people jump into action without a lot of planning behind it. And I love the theme that you set up for the podcast, which is you don't have to know everything already. It's a safe space to learn.
Do you think that this proclivity for landscapers to throw up a job posting and hope and wish and be very like passive in their recruiting, that would be the word I'd use to describe it, do you think that that's unique to the blue collar economy, or is that pattern something, you guys work with a lot of businesses, is that pattern something that you observe more broadly, and it doesn't really matter what industry we're talking about?
Absolutely. I would say it is the trades. We see it in hospitality. Anywhere where you get that like seasonality, ebb and flow, it's very common. And we're super excited to just kind of help people start to shift a little bit, like really shift their mindset on what that it means to attract top talent, to do it proactively, and to just really kind of have a strategy in place that you're doing year round, not just at the busy times, not just when you're panicking.
So we're going to cover like a lot, but I think it's important to install. I always feel like with stuff like this, we can talk about like tactics, we can talk about tips and tricks, we can talk about new tools, but a lot of the times what's needed at the beginning is a shift in perspective or a shift in mindset. So Naomi, I'll ask you this first, but I'd like to hear from both of you. What is the single biggest mindset shift that entrepreneurs need to make in order to become the world-class recruiters that they obviously need to become?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think it's really about stop hiring people just to fill the role and really starting to create opportunities where they can really see themselves building a future with you.
I think for us, it's almost shifting the mindset and not necessarily focusing towards the traditional efforts of recruitment, but really thinking about it in terms of a pipeline. So building your pipeline of talent the same way that you would do in sales, but with people, and really thinking ahead. So shifting from action to strategy and really thinking about it in terms of building. For us, we call it our list of superstars. We're always looking for top talents and keeping a list of all the amazing people we meet throughout the years, because you might not need them now, but it will come a time where you have transition, people moving forward in their positions, and then you can always refer to that list.
I think for me, the biggest shift that came is understanding the recruitment and hiring process in the same lens as I do marketing and sales. So there's two sides to that. One is actually looking at it from a components standpoint, the same way I look at a funnel. There is top of funnel activity to generate awareness and interest and excitement. There's middle of funnel activity to nurture and get people more excited and further down the funnel into more serious conversations. Then there's bottom of funnel stuff that you would do that's sort of around the final selection after you've done a bunch of interviews. And if you were to just map those steps to a sales and marketing process that most contractors are really familiar with, and to be honest, quite good at. So it's like the skills are already there. They look very identical. And then I think the second piece is just skill set aside, there is an enthusiasm and I would say a seriousness that's really lacking when it comes to human resources and team building. People will complain until the cows come home about how people are the biggest problem. But if you did a time audit on their calendar and looked at how much time they spent on recruitment activities, doing interviews, building a good funnel that attracts candidates that they want, if you looked at the dollars spent, you went and looked at their budget at the end of the year, how much did you spend on networking events? How much did you spend on employer brand? Did you invest in a really good careers page? How much did you spend to make your ads the top ads on these various platforms? It's not very much. It would be like, I would say the vast majority of businesses, I'm guessing, are under 1%. And then you wonder sort of like, okay, well, why is there such a disconnect here? And I just think people forget that this is a funnel and it needs to be designed in such a way and it needs to be approached in the same way that you attack the marketing and sales component of your business. Do you guys have anything to kind of add to that? Is that a good thing to sort of frame up the rest of what follows?
Absolutely. And I think too, with depending on the size of your organization, you might not have an internal HR department. So if there's not an official owner of recruitment and building that funnel, then it kind of falls off, the side of someone's desk. And often that responsibility, if you have a smaller organization with no HR department, might fall on the to-do list of someone who's admin and solely behind the computer. So a little bit disconnected from the day-to-day operation of a business. And I think that really contributes to not spending enough efforts in these activities.
I think definitions matter. Before we dive into tactics, what do we actually mean? What does proactive recruitment mean when we're talking about in this landscaping business owner context?
Well, that means not waiting until a position opens up to think about the next person you're going to recruit. So it's building your recruitment strategy ahead of time. So usually, ideally, before the calendar year starts, with a clear strategy of where you want to go, where you might see movement in talent in your business, or how you might plan on expanding your services or growing your business, and really tackling it from good preparations perspective and really building that pipeline from the get-go.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? Like, I think that the typical approach to this is, like, you talk about, okay, like thinking through your strategy up front, your HR strategy up front. I think that there's a general sense that, okay, the spring is going to roll around, operations are going to begin, we're going to be busy. I have some people that I've either maintained year round, they're on salary, or I've found some work and some hourly work for them to do during the winter. And then as things ramp up, they're going to be even busier. And at that time, I'm going to add some people. Like, I think that there's a general sense about that. I don't think that there is, in many cases, a thoughtful and mapped out and sort of future oriented plan around. I think you said movement in the business, meaning we're probably going to exit some people. Some people are probably going to quit. Some people, fortunately, we're probably going to ascend into bigger roles and they're going to leave empty spaces behind. So can you just maybe expand on what does that mean to build out a human resources or a hiring strategy going into a year? What does that actually look like?
Yeah, so you would look at exactly what you said. So you have your list of top performers, you have your list of people that are maybe not meeting expectations, and you have your transition plan of, who will be likely departing, like you said, how you will fill these positions. So is it internally with staff movement, going up the ladder, or is it some external recruitment? And I would map out every single position with what the strategy is. Internal recruitment, external recruitment, depending on the role, how long you're going to invest. I would map out all of the costs associated to it. So this is where we're going to post. This is how long it's going to take approximately, who will be involved, and how we're going to onboard these people. So I would map this all out with all of the actions, the costs, the timelines, who's responsible, and thinking about, if you're adding also new services to your business. So you might need to hire some pretty technical people, and that might mean a longer recruitment process, a longer lead time.
Beyond like Indeed and Craigslist and Kijiji, there's sort of like your standard list of places that people are going to think to make a job posting. Can we just have a longer conversation about like what is the next layer of sourcing channels that owners should be exploring?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, we kind of go digital right away. That's where we start, and we want to be there. Of course, in this day and age, like Indeed, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, great platforms to be using, really showcases the brand, the culture, which is so important. Those are probably going to start reaching people that are already thinking about coming into trades or doing outdoor work, landscaping. But we would definitely challenge people, like, especially, to kind of go out in their communities, like actually be in person, be face to face, whether that's like career fairs, trade programs, going into different schools, being on local community boards, or even sponsoring events that kind of align with their culture. Like, that's how you're really going to start attracting those like-minded people and kind of be able to get outside of just being online.
What have you guys found the most effective with clients when we're talking about the more grassroots approach? I think a lot of people try something once. I don't know. They sponsor a soccer team. They do a talk at a trade school, and it doesn't really get them anything, and the whole thing kind of falls apart. And then I know lots of operators who are heavily involved, and that strategy makes up a really big part of their funnel every year. What does it actually take we can obviously post it, we can make the job postings and people will, but in terms of like local community involvement, what's actually required to get an ROI out of that?
Yeah, and it's definitely about multiple touch points. So I like what you said about sponsoring a team event. That's part of a strategy. So it's probably not your sole strategy. And I think, just to kind of get back to mapping everything and looking at metrics, which we can talk about later, that would be, something that you can track and see how many connections you've made out of it. But that's probably more of a long-term play in your involvement in the community. So it's like going to the gym, right? You're going to go once, you're not going to see the results right away, would be the same. So there's other involvement in the community, especially if you have trade schools in your area. So spending time going to the career fairs, getting invited maybe to speak in a classroom about what it's like to work in trades or talking about specific topics. That's a good thing to do. And then I'd say really focusing on your existing staff. So you've recruited them, they fit your culture, you love them already. So why not recruit in their group of friends and family members? So building those referral programs to tap into your group of employees.
I'd love some examples or some stories or some tactics from you guys. How do we operationalize these referral programs so that they're an ongoing, living, breathing thing that ideally takes on a bit of a life of its own? In other words, there's a recruitment culture baked into the DNA of the company, and people know that there's a certain reward or a set of rewards when they bring in a great hire and they make it through the process and are onboarded past 90 days. Like, talk about incentives, talk about how to structure it. How do you talk about it and remind people of it? Because I think, again, this is one of these things that maybe somebody makes one announcement on a team huddle and then the whole thing sort of fizzles pretty quickly. But I know other teams where they don't even post. I can think of, 5 or 6 companies, mutual friends of ours who like, yeah, we don't even need to post because our team brings us the people we need from their networks and then their friends' networks and so on and so forth. So that's done in a very like intentional top-down way. I know it starts with the leader. What would good look like in that department?
Yeah. And it's so true. I think we all can think about either places we've worked or businesses that we've seen, clients we've worked where they're great, or we have no idea really what's going on. And so it's definitely key to be consistent and to, roll out the program, and it's going to happen across the board. And then eventually, hopefully, you're not having to talk about it as much, and because you're being consistent and you're recognizing everyone. I would say a few places that we've seen that have really good referral programs are where you are recognizing the person who is referred, like, your current employee refers someone, they get hired, you recognize both of them. So say that employee, whether that's like a cash bonus or it's a gift card or it's paid time off, you kind of feel out what's going to make sense with your team, or you can give them some options, let them feel empowered. They can choose what their reward is, but then also give something to the person that gets hired. It doesn't have to be as big, but just something to kind of make them feel really welcomed off the get-go. And then say they make it to like, their 3 months, or you can, if you're trying to fill a summer contract, you can kind of play around with the date that makes sense. Then there's something else small that they might get as well.
You guys are proponents of like incentivizing this with like something substantial. This isn't like a high five and a Gatorade and a slice of pizza.
No
It's like
single pizza.
it's $1,000. It's $3,000. Like depending on the role.
Totally.
I think that business owners sometimes you kind of forget how how annoying of a problem this is, and if it were fixed, is that worth $3,000 to you or $1,500 to you? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are we sort of, hey, we're team pay people to bring you other good people?
Absolutely. I think what we sometimes forget is, the retention piece, and like happy employees. One of the, sometimes when you do surveys, what, like, do you have a friend at work is a question. And that's something that's really important to people at work. They want to feel like they have a friend at work. And so imagine they get the opportunity to bring in awesome people to work with. Like, they're all going to stay. They're having a great time. They're working, they're getting paid, they're with their friends. So yes, we believe in referral programs.
Yeah. And if you're having a hard time as a business owner wrapping your head around the number, you can quickly map out how much you would invest in the posting, the fees of having it, posted on social media, the number of hours you would invest as a manager in interview process. And then you can come up with a number, something that you can give away to your staff, and then makes it a little bit more palatable.
We go back up to the typical channels you mentioned earlier. Okay, so there's your regular posting sites, and some of them are big national, international sort of websites that we all know, and then there's some, depending on your community, that are hyper local that still get a ton of activity. I mean, we have this website here in Kelowna called Castanet, which still gets a huge amount of traffic, and it's owned by a local business. This is not Indeed, and there's lots of websites like that depending on the community or the state or province. So there's that kind of channel, which is just, let's think of them as like your typical job posting channels, and then there's also social media. And I'm just gonna bundle sort of Instagram with TikTok, with LinkedIn, what have you. Can we just go through like tactically how to win on those two channels? I'm thinking about maybe more detailed stuff, how to write better job posts, how to make sure that those are getting seen by as many people as possible. Let's start with the typical posting sites first, but how can people maximize the likelihood of success on that specific tactic?
So it's all about knowing who you're speaking to. So you've probably heard us, if you've watched any, anything else that we've posted online, we often talk about ideal candidate profiles. So really being super clear on who it is that you're targeting. And so for a landscaping business, you would have multiple different profiles depending on the positions that you're recruiting for. And then same thing as a marketing exercise, you would learn who these people are, the language they speak, what's important to them. And then once you have that deep understanding, then you craft your job postings to speak to them. And that's one of the comments that Naomi and I get the most when we draft job postings, is the people that we interview are saying, I felt like this was speaking to me. I've never read a posting that was, I felt like it was addressing me directly. And that's where you want to get. And it doesn't matter like the level of positions that you're recruiting, you'll really get to know that person. So of course you wouldn't discriminate on age, but you kind of have, a pool with an age group, the type of activity they love to do, the type of clothing they like to wear, the same way that you would do your branding exercises. And then you would choose imagery, words that really resonate with that target demographic. So when they see the ad, they already trust the company because it's speaking directly to them and creating that emotional connection.
So I think like our listeners would be very familiar with an ideal client profile, because it's something that we talk about a lot under the LeanScaper operating system. I think what's talked about less frequently is the other kind of ICP, an ideal candidate profile. Just quickly, like, is this a document? What should we be thinking about? How do we do the reverse engineering needed to sort of say, hey, these are the types of people we want, and therefore this is the profile we should go after?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a document. You are kind of getting to build your dream like avatar, right? So we have, yes, what the jobs will be, skills needed, but it gets deeper than that, right? It's preferences and abilities, more like personality traits. What are they interested in? You can, start to think about where have you seen these other potential people or qualities in other people from past jobs or companies you've had, or say the barista at the coffee shop is amazing. And if you could just take that level of customer service and put that into your foreman, that would be amazing. So we kind of compile all of that into this document, and that is really our foundation from then what we do all the other pieces. So when we tie it back to marketing, that's how we start to create the job posting and really be able to speak the language to attract the people that we want.
There's an interesting wrinkle here with AI. So obviously, like, this is such a buzzy topic. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but this really fits in this part of the conversation. I think the standard utilization, or the way that ChatGPT would be deployed for this, is a business owner in the chaos of their busy day. Who can blame them? They're looking for a few freebies here and there. They just go to GPT and they say, write me a job posting for XYZ role. What ChatGPT can't really do is profile the ideal candidate for your business. And so I think this is a really critical step, like so much so that if you did the actual exercise to write the ICP document AI free, you just do it through conversating with the good people you already have on your team. You think about the good people you've had in the past. You really sort of distill that down into a set of characteristics, demographics, lifestyle, what do they like to do in their free time, all that stuff, and you fed that to GPT, as you said, write me the job posting. Immediately, this thing is going to be way more conversion focused. That ad is going to be something much more of the right people, I should say, click on.
Absolutely. And then you would ask ChatGPT to make it, a certain length or a right balance between speaking about the opportunity, speaking about the company, and also listing all the things that you need. And I know you and I, Benji, have talked about it multiple times in the past. A job posting it goes both ways, right? You have to show what you're offering, and then also ask for what you want. But you have to strike that right balance between both, so that when your ideal candidates are reading your posting, they actually are getting excited and it's uplifting. So you want to think about that feeling as well. And I'm sure, we do that, right? With ChatGPT, you can even feed in the feeling that you want on the receiving end, so that you're generating that level of energy. And the person who finishes reading your posting is actually not feeling exhausted. They're like, okay, what's my next action? And they're ready to send a resume.
When you guys think about social media, let's just pick one channel, because I know that the strategies are going to be different for each platform. LinkedIn always feels more like B2B to me. TikTok, I just don't think there's that many of our listeners invest in that. However, the vast majority of our listeners would be pretty active on Instagram. Can you guys walk through just what's your philosophy to using Instagram as a recruitment tool? What kind of posts should they be making? What type of content should there be? How do they sort of display their business in such a way that makes it look like a place people want to work?
I think that Instagram is a really great place for that, and you can kind of combine it into the content that you're creating on an annual basis. Part of that marketing tool, we were just looking at some local landscaping companies today and their Instagram, and a few that really stood out where they're showcasing the work that they do, these incredible properties, but they also, like, quite naturally, it seems, have these great post works. They're very team oriented. So it's whether it's a team building day or it's showing the team working together. And so it's starting to create that culture. And I think as someone, you shorten that job ad a little bit, your job posting, and have it on there. Like, it's a perfect platform to use for that.
I want to move to a question about, like, rebranding the industry. So I think that there's a really widely felt frustration with contractors, like with young people, broadly speaking. And I say that with air quotes around it, because I'm like, what do you like? Who's young? Am I young? Like, what does it even mean? But there's definitely like a young people suck narrative that I think has gotten, I think on some levels is fair, and I think in a lot of other ways it's gotten a little out of hand. I've been reading a lot online lately about this idea of like the tool belt generation. There's a bunch of articles that Forbes has come out with. I saw some stuff in the Washington Post. Like this is a story that's being picked up. And so I'll just summarize it here before I ask you the question. It's the gist of it is basically like Gen Z, so people in their sort of late teens, early 20s, mid 20s right now, are waking up to the fact that the college first narrative was largely a bit of a con job that was peddled on their older brothers and sisters. And so they're younger looking up at, siblings or cousins who have pretty meaningless degrees that haven't led to meaningful changes in their income. Like, it's just, there's a lot of people floating around the economy right now with a bachelor of X or a bachelor of Y going like, well, that was a waste of time. So they've seen that. And then the second thing that's happened is they're watching all of these like really interesting mass following creators on TikTok and YouTube. And if you spend any time on these platforms, you just search in plumber on TikTok, you're going to see people with like multi-million follower count channels, huge amounts of views. And that has in a way made the trades attractive, appealing, hip again in a way that I don't think anyone saw coming. So that's the take. I'm just repeating to you what is being talked about. Do you guys think that like is this trope real, or is this just kind of a media narrative that's there to sell articles?
I think it does make sense. We're definitely seeing a shift. And I think younger people are looking for hands-on, meaningful work and also long-term, more stable career. And I think trades offer just that. And it kind of makes sense, right? If you can start making great money at a very young age, so instead of going into school debts for years, and you can start investing your money in the market, and just seeing a huge trend in young people, starting in careers where they can make great money from the get-go and are super interested in the investment market. It is definitely a trend that we're seeing.
You are seeing it. This isn't just a made up thing. Like in interviews and conversations, in the actual candidate flow, you guys have a firsthand experience. Kind of, you're getting those signals as well.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, like, for if we're talking kinda like Gen Z generation, the young people, it's they wanna be able to do, like, work with their hands, like, be able to see what they are creating.
Why? I'm really interested in this.
Because I think
What do you?
there's these pieces where it has more meaning. I think that they're also seeing there's more stability. I mean, we all have this idea now, I think, that you could just, like, be a TikTok star and make $1 million, but people millions are starting to realize that's not the case for everyone. And even like the remote work, these are kids that have come maybe through COVID and, had to do it at home. And now they actually want to be part of a team. They want to be more social. So and the trades is something that is giving that. It's interesting too, because I would also say, I guess more at the millennial level, seeing people go back into trades, from other work, because they're also seeing that kind of that meaning, that purpose, that you can be your own boss if you want to, and that there is that longevity, and there's great money to be made.
I did a talk the other day at our mutual friend Barry Hartman's like event. He's got like this accelerator for junk removal companies, and it's growing really quickly. And he'd asked me to come and do sort of a talk on the final day, and I put something together, and I titled it "Make Trades Cool Again," which sounds a little bit Trumpian, but that's on purpose. Hey, look, love him or hate him, he's a pretty good brand guy. I'm glad to hear you guys say this, because the case that I'm making is sort of hitting all these notes. And then there's another one which I don't think people fully see yet, which is, and even I'm a little nervous about this, but I do think that the onslaught, the tidal wave of sort of entry-level information workers that are going to be without a job within 5 years, I do think that is as bad as people say it's going to be. There's a lot about the AI future that I think people are kind of getting a little overly paranoid about. There's a lot of it, but that one detail I think is very, very real. When you look at how powerful LLMs are, when you look at how powerful AI-powered content generation is, and it's just getting started, there is absolutely a case to be made that marketing coordinators and entry-level this and entry-level that type roles are going to be way harder to find. And there's going to be all of a sudden this massive talent supply of people looking for work that just wasn't there before. And so I'm weirdly very bullish on the blue collar economy's future. If I could sell my condo, my boat, if I could get extremely liquid and buy a stock like the S&P blue collar, just was like an ETF that tracked this part of the economy, I would.
Yeah.
I really, really think that the future is bright. And it's this plot twist that no one saw coming. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are seeing that in your firsthand experience. experience as well. Otherwise, my talk wouldn't age very well, would it?
And
But
I think Benji, people are also, they're looking at, some people have been disillusioned too with what they've been fed in the workplace. So I think turning towards trades is bringing it back to where it's real as well.
what are they disillusioned by?
Well, working for large corporations or bigger companies where they, did not feel appreciated, or they felt disconnected, or maybe treated as kind of just a transactional employee. Where I think in trades, and I want to circle back to what Naomi was saying about the new generations, is they're looking for that collaboration aspect, right? The transparency and all of these elements that you can find in a more real fashion in the trades industry.
I do think that people are screened out and algorithmed out and FaceTime and Zoomed out. I think that the allure of remote work, I've been working remote for 11 years at this point, way before COVID. And I can tell you, it is not what it's all cracked up to be. The challenges, the cons match the pros. And if you're serious about business, this idea that you're doing it from a beach or a hostel somewhere is just completely, like, you're not a serious person if that's your workplace. I'm sorry. That's a cute little thing that you have as a side hustle, but you're like, you are going to be the first people that get cut when AI comes for your job, trust me. So there's this promise that's being made that I think it took 5 or 6 years for people to get firsthand experience with it, to go, oh, you know what, this is actually kind of, and I could make more money and make more friends and have more meaning in my work. I guess I can't go and like work from a coffee shop, but I'd make that trade any day of the week. I'm optimistic that a lot of people are seeing that and kind of switching back. And it sounds like you guys see that too.
Yes, I would say that we are definitely seeing that. I think people are realizing too with remote work, I mean, it's a lot of self-discipline, and a lot of people don't have that. And it's easier to go to a
That's
job.
interesting.
It's easier to go somewhere and have it kind of laid out. And yeah, and it kind of just goes back to being able to actually like those, to see your tangible results from what you're doing. I think
Mm.
too, even this newer generation, they really value that.
So the other thing that I know that this younger generation really values is a career path and sort of upward mobility. That's a bit of a buzz term. More what I mean is they need to see that this isn't a dead-end job. They need to see that they're a part of a company where, yeah, they might start here, but if they put in good work for a period of time, they can get there. The blue-collar businesses in North America, in my opinion, really struggle with, like, I would just say, a branding issue. It's often seen as low skill. It's often seen as seasonal. How do you guys think business owners ought to approach the problem of reframing this as a truly professional career path?
Well, I would lay it out, in a visual format, and you'd probably build different career paths for different positions in your organization, and you would kind of see, like, you start in this role, and then you access, the foreman role, and then a more like superintendent role. But then from there, this could branch out, so you could go into project management, or you could go into, something that's more admin related in the office or finance related. And I would kind of show in org chart fashion, or some type of a visual, what the options are and what it entails. Because I think people want to know, okay, if I want to do this, what do I need to learn? How much time do I have to invest? Will you help me with some of the costs too, around taking some courses, or maybe getting additional learning? So it's really about facilitating those conversations. And you already do performance management with your staff. And we always say in HR, the second part, which should take just as long as the parties spend doing the performance management conversation, is that second part of the meeting is the career path and career mapping with your employees on an individual fashion. And I'd have that conversation twice a year. And sometimes it's just to reiterate what we already know, but you make a point of having that conversation on a very consistent basis.
What actually is entailed in that career pathing conversation? I think most people are familiar with a performance review, even if they're doing it in kind of an ad hoc fashion. I don't think that many people are familiar with like a career meeting or a career path conversation. So what is that about, and how do we install it?
Yeah, so it's very much about knowing what's important to the person. So, being super familiar with their education and their desires. So, and then helping put that into action and helping them get to that ideal role. So, it's a little bit of psychology in a way, right? It's asking what people truly want, and it can be uncomfortable if that's not part of your day-to-day type of work. But it's getting to know someone in a deeper fashion, and sometimes people are happy where they are. They're like, I want to do manual work for the rest of my life, and that's totally fine. And then we can kind of show them, oh well, this is great, and this is there's other things to learn to capture their interests and keep them entertained in their role. But if they aspire to do more, then it's mapping it out with them in terms of steps. And we usually push it one step further. It's about getting to know their goals, their personal goals as well. So that's not just about work, but what do they want to achieve in their personal lives as well? Because especially if they're less focused on career growth, then you want to make sure that you promote or help them with their personal goals. And that can be, running a marathon or anything that they want to pursue personally.
I would love to shift to employer brand just as a concept. People are familiar with brand in general, and even if they have maybe a limited understanding of it, you think of a logo, you think of a website, a name, brand colors, some fonts. Like most businesses fairly early on will get some semblance of a brand package built to create a website off of and design clothing off of and make some truck wraps around. This concept of employer brand, I think, is a lot lesser known. I would make the case that it's even more important. How do you guys define it, and how should people begin thinking about it when this concept is new to them?
Well, it's always coming back to that ideal candidate profile, but also as your employer brand, it's like, what is that kind of candidate experience? If you're the job seeker, what do I want to know first about your company? So you want to have that same story across your website, your social media, your job postings. Do they kind of communicate like they want to work there? It's really stepping into the shoes of the potential hire. It's that ease of how can someone apply? Maybe they want to see other people's success stories. Again, right? Like, if I want to join your business, where can I be in 3 years, 5 years? And it's kind of thinking about, you want to have that at all kind of points too. So, you're kind of getting them in the door first, but what is that whole kind of employee customer journey once they're in? Kind of thinking about your client journey, flip that and make it that employer journey as well. And, because then it's just kind of creating all those touch points and keeping it consistent.
If you guys were auditing a LeanScaper's employer brand, what would be the first things that you would go and look at?
Well, we would look at their mission, vision, values. So are they clear, and is that already established? We would look at the work experience. What does it look like, the work environment for the employees? We would try to define the culture. So we would spend a lot of time putting things that happen on a daily basis, but in words, in a more analytical fashion. And then we would look at, compensation structures and then the candidate experience, as Naomi was talking about, the employee experience throughout the whole employee life cycle and how they engage with employees. And then we would package all of that into an employer brand. Sorry, I keep talking about strategy, but that's what it comes down to, is the employer brand strategy. And then it's the whole storytelling that takes place from there. I think sometimes we try to jump to storytelling too quickly, and we're not even sure of who we are and what we stand for, how we bond together. And I think that's been super fun for Naomi and I working with our clients. Is we ask and we push our clients pretty hard on defining how their employees bond together and what makes them special. And sometimes it's not something that we spend a lot of time thinking about, and just putting it in words can be so powerful, because then you can package that and use it as basically a strategic advantage of how you can gather more of these employees that bond over these specific things.
I'd love to know if there's employer brand assets that stand out as really low-hanging fruit. And I'll kind of like prime the question by sharing with you a couple that I think are critical. Like, I'm a huge believer in building a really good careers page on your website and having a really good like culture video right up near the header, right up near the hero. And then, if you've built it on Webflow, or you have someone on your team that's sort of like technically competent, can make updates, you can basically update your open roles as they become open and closed. You can drive ads towards it. Like, there's a lot that you can do with that one careers page if it's done well. That's one. Are there other like employer brand layups that you think people should be investing in? Because when they do, they almost always create a return.
I think, and this is, a culture video is amazing. Any time I think you can share, and it can be written, or video is always ideal, but if that doesn't kind of fit with what you want to spend, just storytelling on either how the owner got started, how a success, someone who started as like a laborer is now, the ops manager, and kind of show that career path because of this, because that's what the brand is supporting and why. I think people are so curious about other people, and they want to know like what made them successful. How did it work for you? Like, what courses did you take? Did you take any courses? How did you get to where you are? Just that storytelling is huge.
Josianne, anything to add?
Yeah, I'd say the interview flow, and really thinking about how much time your candidates are investing in the whole interview process, and how they're treated along the way. And we often talk about the red carpet experience, and really rolling down the carpet to our candidates and making it special for them. So for sure, you want to, like, an interview is really a chance for you to display your culture as an organization. So you want to make sure that everything you do, from the voicemail you leave or the email you send, the wording you use, where you welcome your candidate for an interview, how you say goodbye, how you follow up, is really displaying your culture from start to finish. And then just keeping it in check, right? So respecting their time as well. So yes, you're collecting information, but you want to make sure at some point you make the call, and then hire them when you both feel ready.
AI do's and don'ts. This is a really buzzy topic. The reason that I have woven this in here to a conversation about like active recruitment and becoming better hirers is because I get the sense that this is one of the areas in the business where it can be used to great benefit, and then it can be naively used to great detriment. So the question is, where should we be deploying AI in our businesses when it comes to recruitment? And then where should we really not be deploying AI, and let's kind of keep it human?
It's definitely like a double-edged sword. It is, AI I think is amazing, and it can save some time, but we never want to lose that human touch, or be careful where we don't feed it, bias, and then it's actually, like you said, it's going to be a detriment because it only has the data that we're feeding it. So I would say a benefit anywhere there where you can kind of, if it's anything to do with scheduling, if you're very accurate in what you want, it can help for sure screening resumes. I think it depends on some of the roles, but if we're kind of looking at, say, more, labor level, a little bit less kind of requirements that we're looking for, it can definitely be a great tool to help you kind of comb through, say, a vast amount of applicants, and you just want to funnel out, people that are out of country or out of state, or don't have this baseline. That's amazing. But you still want to make sure that you are still having your eyes on some things and giving that human touch, because I think you don't want to miss out because you're just trusting what it's.
Yeah. Do you have a recommendation for, like, what is the tool that people should be, like, that application is a great one. Like, I don't think that it's a great use of a office manager's time or some leader inside of a business's time to sort through 120 resumes, because half of them are bots and the other half are unqualified. Like, that sounds like that's a great place to use AI. What is there a tool that you guys like for that?
Well, I think every business is different. It depends what you are going to be using it for, because I think there's a lot of, you can waste, well, not waste time, but spend a lot of time reviewing different programs. There's a cost to them. So it kind of depends on the size of your business, what you're looking for. There's different elements in LinkedIn that AI is there, which is great. But there's so many tools right now, it'd be hard to say specifically what is the best. But there are some pieces for sure. What we use on LinkedIn is helpful, but we're still quite involved.
Where can it be deployed to great improvement? To, like, where is it very, very useful? What aspects of the funnel do you think it provides a ton of utility?
I think it would be in the attraction phase, to be honest. Like we talked about like the more, I guess, admin aspect of things. And yes, it saves you a ton of time in, crafting documents and screening resumes, scheduling all that jazz. But really at the beginning of the funnel in the attraction phase, where you can use AI to generate a lot of recruitment assets, being videos, posts for social media, and different ways of displaying your culture without having to invest a ton of money. So, in the past, you would hire a film crew to come in and film your employees at work and create, these reels with B-roll and all that jazz. So now AI can do that within minutes if you have, at least a few photos of your staff and a few cool ideas. It can really transform what you put out there, and as a result, you appear like a much bigger, more sophisticated business, more thought through, and really share these experiences. Because I think that's the thing with recruitment is people want to recognize themselves in what you're putting out in the ads, and when they do, then they want to join you. So I think using AI to generate these assets is wonderful.
I think the thing with AI, like, and recruitment, it's pairing it together, right? It's like efficiency of the AI, the empathy of the human. So the technology can kind of handle the repetitive tasks or helping the human create the vision, and that's going to save you time too, to be able to kind of like put your energy into the building the relationships, which we know is most important in recruitment and retention, because especially in trades, landscaping, like, you are going to be joining people because you're going to be working with people day in and day out and not the computer. So that's kind of how I like to think of it, a twofold.
Yeah, that's really, I love that.
Yeah.
The empathy of the human, the efficiency of the tool. Okay, I have a closing question for you guys. There is a feeling that a lot of smaller businesses have that they'll just never sort of be able to compete. There's all of these like bigger brands, bigger businesses, better opportunities out there. How am I going to get the people I need? The offer that I'm making isn't competitive. To be honest, a lot of that is a story that they're just telling themselves. Maybe there might be a few things that they could improve on, but I don't think that that's necessarily a true statement as much as it is just a story they're telling themselves. What advice would you give to an owner who feels like, I'm never going to be able to compete with those big companies?
I think that's very valid. I think, yeah, we see that too. I think that a smaller business owner may be fearing that they can't compete with like a bigger paycheck or bigger perks. But what they can offer, what they do offer, is that community, that flexibility, more hands-on experience in the role, going back to kind of what we were talking about to that younger generation, like that more meaningful work. You have access to more of that because it's a smaller business and you kind of get more of those touch points. So they offer, there's so much in that there's more freedom. And so it's being able to kind of tell that story instead of just being like, oh, well, I can't compete because I can't offer that big paycheck. Yes, money is important, but it's definitely not everything.
Yeah, and smaller, it's kind of where it's at for recruitment right now, because people have access to leadership directly in a small company, and that's very valuable to young workers. And I'd say, the other piece is the experience. Is you're joining a group of like-minded people, and that's what people are after right now.
So lead with that. It's like, hey, there might be things that a bigger company has that you don't have. There's actually a ton of stuff, if you're to just slow down and look, that you have that they don't.
Yeah.
And maybe make that what the ad is about. Maybe make that what the video is about. Maybe make that what the conversation in an interview is focused on. I think that that's really, really good advice. Listen, guys, we didn't hit this at the top, so I want to hit it at the end. Just tell the audience, like, tell us a bit about CrewHR and where people can connect with you if they want to.
That's great. So we do recruitment, HR consulting. So anything under the HR umbrella is our jam. And you can visit our website at www.crewhr.co. Naomi and I are just in the process of writing a book right now on recruitment. And we just want to bring the fun back into recruitment. And it's going to be, a bit of definitely a business book, but with a super fun twist on it. So yeah, that's what you can look forward to.
What's it called? Can you say? Or can we release the title yet, or too soon?
It's
top secret.
It's top secret.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But it will.
Okay. Well,
it's gonna be good.
I can't wait. I will link you guys below in the show notes where people can click and find out more. Josie, Naomi, thank you guys so much. This has been really enlightening, super helpful. Love the conversation. Would love to have you guys back in the future.